So today it is my pleasure to collaborate with another Nebraska podcaster. Here we're going to kind of interview each other. So in the podcast studio with me today is Brian Blakely from the Nebraska. Hold on. I don't know what happened to my brain all of a sudden.
No, it's good.
This is my third podcast episode today.
Okay. So your brain's fried.
A little bit. All right. It should make for entertaining comment. Okay. Today, it is my pleasure to collaborate with another Nebraska podcaster from the Good Life Small Business Podcast. In the studio today is Brian Blakely.
Yes, and welcome everyone to another edition of the Good Life Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Blakely. Pleased to be joined by Sheila Jenkinson. I forgot that. I went blank. But she's got the Growing Small Nebraska podcast, and it is a joy to sit down and talk to you.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So I found your podcast and have been listening to it. I just searched Nebraska podcasts because I thought, hey, I should probably see what else is out there and start listening to some. And yours popped up for me very quickly. And so I've been enjoying your podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
And then I thought, hey, let's do a collaboration. It's been something that I've been wanting to do more and more of.
Yeah.
And so here we are. So Brian, you are the host, like you said, of the Good Life Small Business Podcast.
Yep.
Currently has around 60 podcast episodes.
Close to it, yeah.
Getting close. Okay. Congratulations on that.
Thanks. It's been way more inconsistent lately than I would like. But that's kind of, I'm a small business owner too, so I've got to take care of that first. So hopefully I can get a little bit more back on track with consistency.
Yeah. So we're just going to kind of go back and forth here as host and guest and see how this works. But I know you usually have some introductory questions that you do.
Yeah. So let's get to know you a little bit more. What books are you reading or listening to right now, Sheila?
All right. Well, so I am a lover of books. And I listen or read about 4 at a time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's very profitable. It's just how I roll. I don't know. It's like, what mood am I in? Do I want this book? Do I want that book? Are you a one book at a time person?
I usually am, but right now, as you say that, I'm reading one. So I'm listening to Traction by, I think it's Gino Wickman. And I'm reading The Power of Discipline. And I can't even remember who the author is, but what I tried to start doing at the beginning of the year is instead of watching TV before I go to bed, try reading.
Yeah.
And usually about 5-10 pages in, I'm fast asleep. So it takes a long time for me to actually get through a book. But I just finished reading Buy Back Your Time. And so I'm reading and listening to different books right now.
Buy Back Your Time. Boy, that sounds like something
That's a good book.
I need to read.
Yeah.
I upped my reading goal this year and was determined, instead of watching so much TV, to read more. And I actually had to go onto Goodreads and up my goal because I think I'm gonna really get it this year, finally.
Yeah.
So I just finished up Alice Hoffman is one of my favorite for fiction.
Okay.
And I just read The Invisible Hour. It's kind of a book about time travel.
Oh.
And it involves Nathaniel Hawthorne. And I love historical fiction. So anytime I can get a bit of truth and history, but yet it's wrapped up in a story that's just a story, that's my favorite, I think. And then I read I Am Malala.
Okay.
Which is an autobiography. I'm sure you've heard of that book.
I haven't, no.
Written by a young lady who was actually shot by the Taliban in Pakistan.
Wow.
And so it was a heavy read. I've had it on my bookshelf for a while and just would be like, pick around it,
right,
but not pick that book. I'm really glad I read that. I think it's a good read. I think everybody should probably check that one out.
Wow.
At some point. And then I just started on Audible. I just started reading The Echo of Old Books.
Okay.
New author for me, Barbara Davis. I just really liked the cover and the title, The Echo of Old Books. Doesn't that sound cool? I have no idea what it's about yet, but
just getting started.
Just getting started. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think reading is, like, for me, it's, it's a way, when I'm driving somewhere, it's a way where you can really take advantage of that time. to listen to a book. And I get through a book when I listen. I get through it way faster than reading, just because it seems like at the end of the day, reading just puts me to sleep. But
it's still reading. It counts. It totally counts.
It totally counts. Yeah. I've gotten through some really good books just traveling from Kearney to Lincoln or wherever I'm going that day. So I love Audible.
I do too. So I've been a long time subscriber of that. And then Libby, which is Nebraska Overdrive or through the libraries. So that's good, but I never finish. I don't usually finish in time.
Yeah. That's kind of why. So I was doing it when it was Overdrive. I would use Overdrive all the time because it's free. And get, you may have to wait. You can't always get the book that you want. But it got to be really kind of around when COVID hit. I was traveling to our Lincoln office probably every 10 days. And so it was not a problem for me to get through a book or almost get through a book and then recheck it out. But when COVID hit, I really didn't travel that much. And so it was more about, being able to pick the book that I wanted and spend a little bit of money to do it. So but Overdrive is great. Like if you want a low cost option, and Libby now is what it is.
Libby is what it's called. Yeah. And it's free. And it's through whatever library you want to go through in Nebraska. So
and it's great for family trips too. Like if you all just kind of want to pick a book that you can listen to and everybody can get involved. So
yeah, I really like that. And I listen to a lot of audiobooks as well. If I'm cleaning at home or if I'm exercising or going for a walk. I love to exercise if I don't think I'm exercising. That's the kind of person I am. If it seems like a game or something fun, totally in. If it seems like work, maybe not so much. But so I listen to a lot of audiobooks and a lot of podcasts while I'm traveling around.
What podcast do you listen to?
Well, I'm listening to yours.
Nice.
I just started, so I've only listened to a few.
That's all right.
And I really liked the fact that you asked about books and podcasts to your guests.
Very selfish reasoning. I like to know if there's a good podcast out there or another. For me, it's really, I like business books, some autobiographies, but a lot of business books. And so selfish reasoning for asking that.
Yeah. So I just started a business book, going back to the books real quick, but it does tie into a podcast. Troy Sandage is a podcaster.
Okay.
And he has the I Digress podcast, which I just started listening to. And I met him in Kearney at Marketech. He was the keynote speaker.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and we clicked and we talked a lot and we're continuing some conversations. So
very cool.
I won his book at Marketech. So, and it's called, now I just forgot what it's called.
I think you mentioned it. I was there. I watched him speak. I think you mentioned it, but I can't remember.
Yeah. I'll have to think about that later. But his book is about, building up business and things like that. I'm listening to his podcasts. Just started on that as well. And he doesn't do it as an interview like you and I do. He's just kind of giving tips and advice. And as you know, because you heard him speak at Marketech, he loves his acronyms.
Yeah, he does.
Very prevalent in his podcast episodes so far. Let's see here. I like to listen to true crime podcasts.
Yep.
Which is ridiculous because I drive around all the time and then I psych myself out.
Yep.
I always tell Clark I'm just being prepared. But and then Clutterbug is one of my favorites. And I found her. Her name's Cassie or Cass. She's from Canada and she's been featured on like Home and Garden TV, which I don't watch a lot of. But she gives organizing and decluttering and simplifying your life tips. And she is a hoot. She is very funny and a real person.
What's the name of that one again?
It's called Clutterbug.
Clutterbug.
And it is changing our lives to listen to that podcast because I'm actually, when I listen to her, I'm decluttering. Yeah. It's amazing.
Motivation while you do it.
Yes. So I would recommend that one.
Yeah. It's a good one. I'm going to have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we're going to kind of just go back and forth here and see how this works. You want to start? You want me to start?
I guess if you just want to tell me a little bit about your journey as a fellow podcaster and kind of what this has been like for you. Usually I tell people to kind of take me back to the beginning of them starting their small business. But how did this get started for you?
Yeah, great question. So this was not on my radar at all. I was just finishing up taking classes through University of California at San Diego for copy editing.
Okay.
I thought maybe I'd go ahead and be a freelance copy editor. I was looking to kind of make a change in my life of careers. I've been in radio for over 20 years. The last part of that was really part-time, but radio's always been a love for me. But I wanted to do something from home and more freelance.
Mm-hmm.
And then Marcy, my former podcast host, she approached me about speaking at an event at Intersect, where we're recording today, about working from home. And then as I met with her, she's like, and I think we should do a podcast.
Throw that in there.
Yeah. And I was thinking, didn't even listen to podcasts.
You had no interest?
No, I didn't know anything about them. And I'm like, I don't think I want to do that. But then she talked about wanting to really highlight small communities throughout Nebraska and to talk to people about what they're doing to make changes and build it up and draw attention and build up the economy and the aesthetics and all of that.
Yeah.
I really couldn't say no. Now, I did say, well, yeah, I think I will do that, but I can't spend a lot of time on it. Yeah. Ask me how that's working out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really the story behind it. We've been going for 18 months.
You've found a passion for it to a certain degree.
I love it.
Yeah.
And now I listen to podcasts all the time.
Yeah.
But it really is the next natural progression for somebody who's been an on-air announcer for years, who still loves that radio atmosphere. I mean, podcasts are very popular and growing, and it really is the next natural step. I just didn't know it.
And you get to control the narrative.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
My son said, well, Mom, what's it feel like to be doing radio but basically working for yourself? And I said, it feels pretty good because I get to pick the content and, like you said, steer the narrative a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I really enjoyed, for me getting started, I don't know if I've really told this story on the podcast, but so I'm part of a networking group and we meet every Wednesday morning. And that's great. It's been great for my business, but there was one time, and it was right around, the pandemic had kind of subsided to a certain degree, at least in Kearney. And there was a group of us that got together. Everyone was invited, and whoever made it, we just, it was more of a happy hour. And we had really good conversations about whether it was hiring employees or just, process and procedures, how we do stuff. Just conversations that we never really got to have, or we don't get time to have, because when we're done with that meeting, it's time for pretty much everyone to go to work, especially the trades guys that we have. But anyway, I left that and I was like, there are some really good conversations that people can have, or that, small business owners. And the thing that I realized, it doesn't matter if you're a dentist or you own a retail store or you or an insurance agent or construction guy or whatever. If you start a small business, there's from an emotional standpoint, we all kind of go through the same thing in a way that we can relate to each other. There's the excitement, and then there's the stress and anxiety, and just the drive to keep it going. And until you own a small business, you really don't understand what that's like. And so, this isn't something where I earn an income off of it. I have been able to gain some clients from it, but that's not the goal of it. Is there's someone that's out there, especially in a small town, not just a small town, but there's someone out there that is hesitant to start a small business, doesn't feel like they can do it, or if they have someone telling them they can't do it. I want people to know that we all go through the same thing. And if there's someone that can gain a little confidence just from a podcast and be able to start a business. Like if someone ever comes to me when it's all said and done and says, hey, I got my business off the ground because, I listened to a couple of episodes of your podcast. Like to me, that would be the best.
Yeah.
Just to give, to let people know they're not alone, because it can be really lonely to start a small business.
It's very mission minded as well.
Yeah.
And I do like the variety of guests that you've had on there so far. Yeah. How do you determine who's going to be on?
There's not a strict criteria by any means. Really, it's a warm lead. I've used Grow Nebraska quite a bit as just kind of a way to an introduction. The two things for me: one, I'm a small business owner too, And so, and especially the last year, I'm an insurance agent. The last year when it comes to insurance has been crazy. And so I've got to make sure that I'm putting my attention towards my clients. And so that has kind of limited the guests that I've been able to have on, because the other thing that I like to do is I like to go to their business, or I like to go to, maybe it's a co-working space or whatever, but I want to go see them in their environment. I want to have their storefront in the background if we can. And I think there's just a level of comfort doing it that way. And it gets to be more personal, where Zoom, you kind of lose that. And we had to do that. And I started my podcast September of 2020. And so when I started it, the restrictions had, lifted to a certain degree, and businesses were opening up. But I never really wanted to do Zoom because I wanted to have that, I don't know, just that personal interaction and just face-to-face conversation. I think makes it, it just makes it more genuine.
It does.
So there's really no, if anybody is interested in sitting down for an interview and would want to, they can get a hold of me by email or reach out on social media or whatever. But there's not any strict criteria. It's just, I've had a lot of people reach out from other states, and I've kindly replied, thanks for the inquiry, but this is really just about small businesses in Nebraska. So that's what I want to focus on.
Well, you just as well stick to it. There are plenty to highlight here in the Cornhusker State.
Yeah.
So stick
Absolutely.
with that. Same, I mean, obviously mine has Nebraska in the title. So that kind of, I don't have people from out of state really asking because they can see that's a no. But
I think what you guys do too, or what you do, highlighting small towns in Nebraska. I've listened to some of your episodes as well. When you're talking to a chamber of commerce, and when you're talking to, when you went out to Sydney and talked about Oktoberfest, the smaller towns, and I'm from a very small town. I'm from Dunning, Nebraska, in the Sand Hills, God's country. I love it there. Dunning doesn't necessarily have, something that they do on an annual basis, but Halsey, which is 10 miles away where the forest is, they always do a really good 4th of July. They have great fireworks, and they do a lot of different things for that and get the community involved. And it's those things where it can be maybe a little bit more difficult to have a small business in a smaller town in Nebraska. But I think the more that we highlight those businesses, I think the more we highlight those communities and kind of what they bring, Nebraska is a special place for a lot of reasons, but it's the small towns and the small town festivals and the small businesses that are in those towns that really make it great. And, that's one of the things that I'm trying to highlight too. And I think that you do a great job of that.
Yeah, you're doing a good job with that as well. There's no reason we can't prop one another up.
Right.
There's room for everyone's voices. Yeah. And really, it's a win-win situation. Anytime, let's say a small downtown, and they put together, hey, let's have a shop night where it's all of us, and let's include this shop over here or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to. And I think people are starting to get it.
Yeah.
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 And I feel like that maybe has been a long time coming.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important too if you own a business in a small town, I think one of the disadvantages that can be there is lack of a network. I think it's in the day and age that we live in with technology, I think that's easier because you can FaceTime someone or Zoom or call if you need to or whatever. So you can communicate. But I think one of the things that I've learned from the podcast is just owning my own business is having a network of people that you can rely on and you can bounce ideas off of and just gain encouragement from. That's huge. And so I think the collaboration, different businesses in small towns, it's just better for everyone.
Oh, yeah. So because our listeners maybe haven't listened, my listeners maybe haven't listened to your podcast yet and vice versa. Brian, you wear a lot of different hats. You talked about the podcast is not your moneymaker. It's not your only thing. So tell me a little bit, tell my listeners a little bit about those extra, what else you do.
Yeah. So, I've been married for 20 years. My wife, Carly, and I have been married for 20 years. We have 3 beautiful girls, 18. My oldest, Lily, is 18. Maisie is 15 and Stella is 10. So when I'm not working or podcasting, I'm usually chasing them around. But I am the director of property and casualty insurance at Stonebridge Insurance. We're based out of Kearney, but we have offices in Grand Island, Lincoln, and Omaha. And property and casualty is basically the home and auto insurance business, farm, those types of things. So that really is what eats up a lot of my time, is trying to figure out how I can make my business better, how I can do different things, empower, the people that we brought on, and just try to give them the best experience possible. So that's, one of the things that I do. My wife and I help with a camp in the summer. It's Teen Reach Adventure Camp.
Oh, nice.
So we're the directors. This will be our second year as the directors of Kearney Track. And that is ramping up here. Our camp is 2 weekends in June. And so we're really getting into the thick of it there.
Those are busy things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but it's a mission that really is on our heart and that we love, and that it's just part of our life. So, so that's one of the things, especially this time of year, that really keeps me busy. But I'm not one to necessarily sit still very well. So this podcast, probably more than anything, with all the other stuff I have going on, I don't really have a lot of hobbies right now in my life. This is probably the one thing that is kind of a hobby for me that I really enjoy doing. I enjoy sitting down and talking to small business owners, and I learn something every time. And it's fun for me. I get to do the marketing side of it with social media, and it's fun to promote them and to get the word out there for them more. So I kind of went on.
And they appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think there's some fear in even getting started.
Yeah.
And or not knowing where to start. And so I have no problem trying things out like that. And so I think just kind of giving them if we can get them a little boost or a little bit of attention, then they can kind of see where that can lead to different things. And so,
yeah.
But I've learned so much just from marketing other businesses on social media. And I do that at no cost. It's fun for me.
Yeah.
Just to promote them.
Yeah. So, then they can listen to the Growing Small Town Nebraska podcast and hear about a lot of the resources available in Nebraska.
Yep.
Coming up, let's see here. There's been an episode about SourceLink Nebraska and different Nebraska Business Development Center.
Yep.
There's a lot of resources, so they can check that out as well.
Yep.
So besides the podcast, I teach piano lessons
a
couple times a week at Midwest Music in downtown Norfolk, and that is it's a joy to my week. I love it. It's mostly little kids.
Yeah.
And I don't know, my kids are grown as well. My husband Clark and I have been married. It'll be 24 years for us this summer. And we have our son Caleb, who is graduating, who will have graduated by the time this goes on our episode here, graduated from Trevecca Nazarene University in Nashville.
Wow, very cool.
Yep. And then our daughter, who is a sophomore there, will be a junior here soon at the same school in Nashville.
Wow.
And Caleb's graduating with religion major or religion degree with minors in, I always have to think, biblical Hebrew, philosophy, and pastoral ministry. There it is.
Wow, good for him.
Yeah. And then our daughter is double major biology chemistry with a math minor.
Okay.
And And so this was a thing where when Marcy approached me, I'm like, well, I'm an empty nester, so sure. And I think we thought, hey, it'll be a fun little hobby. It took off so quickly, and the support of Nebraska has been amazing.
Yeah.
And so many listeners and people wanting to be on the show or have the podcast travel to them, that it's become a more than full-time gig.
Were you surprised by that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and then I guess no. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that Nebraskans would embrace this Nebraska story and kind of cheer one another on. Because again, I think we're seeing more and more of that.
Yeah.
But a little surprised at how quickly it grew.
Yeah.
And it's been great. I mean, I can't complain.
Yeah.
But it is definitely turned into my full-time thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, let's see here. How would you say that, like, tourism and community events, when you talk to these business owners, how would you say that things like that have impacted their businesses and the small towns in general?
I think that it seems like, again, a lot of it's during the summer, but there's throughout the year the small town events that go on every year, the annual events that they have that they really they put time and effort into, and that the community gets involved in. Um, it's great for that community, but I think to see other people come from out of town and just kind of be immersed in that, in the attitude. It's really one of the things that makes Nebraska great, and especially small town Nebraska. And so those are the types of things that, if you are a family from out of town or whatever it may be, you go to visit one of these small towns where they have this, it's like, we need to come back here and just see what it's like some other time. And so I think that those are a huge benefit that those communities have. Um, the other benefit of a small town community is the quiet. So it's not something you're not going to have something going on all the time. But, and I think the collaboration too, working together to put together an added benefit. One of the things that I see in Kearney is the breweries or tap room or whoever it is there. One of the things that they're not necessarily serving food, but they're bringing a food truck pretty
Oh,
much
yeah.
all the time. And so, um, especially on weekends, that's a great way where you get a variety of different food, but you've got two businesses that are collaborating for
Right.
two different things. And someone may not go there necessarily to go get a beer. They're going to the food truck, but it's like, hey, why don't we go in and eat our food? We can have a beer, or have a glass of wine or
Yeah,
whatever.
have a soda if you
Yeah.
want.
Or
Yeah.
someone, after work goes in to have a beer or whatever, and they're like, oh, hey, food trucks here. Let's go out there. So I think that's just a great example of being creative, and figuring out ways where, I don't do this, but you do this really well. Let's get together and make it a good experience for everyone involved.
Yeah,
So
that's what we're seeing a lot of.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that Nebraska really needs to, we need to highlight the things that we do well, the things that the Nebraska nice that everybody talks about. I think if we can just get people to this state, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about Nebraska. And if we can just get people here and show them just what it's like here and all the things that we can offer, um, it's only going to help. But
Mhm.
it takes a lot of work too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners of the Growing Small Town Nebraska podcast?
Well, I would like to ask you a question.
Okay.
So, what do you think? Let's say there's someone out there that maybe is thinking about doing a podcast, for whatever reason, if they want to do a niche in their business or whatever. What advice would you give them if they come to you and say, Sheila, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. What should I do first? Or what are some things that you would do differently? What would you tell them?
Okay.
I'm throwing
First,
you a curveball.
yeah. First of all, I would say go ahead and do it. Give it a shot. It doesn't have to necessarily be your full-time thing, like you're doing it as a hobby.
Mhm.
And I think with podcasts, that's the beautiful thing about them. There is a voice for everyone.
Mhm.
Everyone has a voice. Podcasting gives you that platform,
Yeah.
whatever you're looking to do. I'd say don't be afraid of it.
Mhm.
I knew nothing about podcasting. Do a little research. You can look things up. You can talk to me. You can
Mhm.
talk to Brian,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And we'd be more than happy to share some tips and tricks and some resources for
Yeah.
that. But I would say just give it a shot. And I don't think wait till you're ready. It's like having kids.
Mhm.
When are you going to be ready?
Right.
Really? Just, you want to do a podcast? Just start a podcast.
And your
Start it from
first
your house if you
your
want to.
first one will be terrible, and your second
Yes.
one will be a little less terrible, and you'll get better. Just like anything else, you get better as you go.
Isn't that the truth? I do. I'll listen to the first episode and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think, like for Marcy and I, our first episode, these usually take about 30 minutes to record, and I edit down to 20.
Yep.
You and I are chatting a little more because it's a whole different thing. But that first one that was maybe 20 minutes long, I think it took us like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
We just were so nervous, and we had no idea. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, with podcasts, it can go an hour long, or there's some podcasts I listen to on my way to work that they're 5 minutes long.
Right.
And it's, whether it's about social media or marketing, or it's, financial stuff, or, whatever you have an interest in. And if you've got a little bit of expertise, it doesn't have to go on for an hour.
Right.
If you want to do some quick snippets that people can, again, take in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, they can listen to 2 or 3 of them. There's so many different ways that you can do it.
Yeah. And like I do a lot of editing on mine. You don't necessarily do editing with yours.
No.
And it's all good. You can do it however you see fit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nice thing about it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anything else? That was a big sigh.
Yeah.
Oh, let me think. We could do this again. It doesn't have to be.
What do you wish you were better at when it comes to all this?
The business side of business.
Yeah.
I just want to do the fun things.
Yep. I know. That's why I do this.
I just want to do the fun things. Numbers are not my thing.
Yeah.
The businessy side of business, I'm a creative. It's always been that way. So, yeah, I wish I was better at that, especially now that Marcy's not on the podcast anymore.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't really like that part either, but she was better at it.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if anybody likes it.
Yeah. But. How about you?
I'm really working right now on, as far as this goes with the podcast, it's about being consistent with getting episodes out there, because I think that's really how you can lose people, is not being consistent, and for good reason. Mm-hmm. People are expecting. I try to put my episodes out on Friday. So if a Friday morning goes by or 2 go by and there's no episode, well, then you kind of be forgotten about. So what I've tried to do is implement things in my small business as far as bringing people on board and training them to, not training them, but just working with them to kind of take some of the tasks off of my plate that allows me to do things like this. So it's a process for me. 2023, I maybe put out 6 or 7 episodes. It really wasn't that many. And so for me, it's really just trying to be consistent and get better. I don't have sponsors, but I'd like to, because I just think that it's just one more way where you can really highlight businesses. And
well, it helps, and your time is worth something.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yep.
And what you're promoting, it is worth something. I appreciate sponsors. It's what allows me to continue to do what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So if you need help looking into that, let me know.
Absolutely.
I will help you with that. And if you're listening, hey, Brian might be looking for a sponsor
Absolutely.
or two, and I'm always looking for sponsors for the podcast. And you talked about consistency, and one of the things that I have added now is called Sheila Shoutouts. And so that one is just me rambling for a little tiny bit about things that I love to do. I like a wide variety of things in Nebraska to do. And so it's kind of, it's shout outs to different communities. I don't sponsor that one. It's just like 6 to 8 minutes maybe.
Somewhere you go visit, like a restaurant or
that I did visit growing up.
Okay.
So it's just highlighting some more things where maybe it's not going to be an entire podcast episode, but I can still give them some recognition.
Yeah.
So I've added that, and what I have found is that listeners were wanting more than 2 episodes a month.
Yeah.
This takes time and effort and money. And so I couldn't do 4 or 5. But with the shout outs, I do those from my home, and I can put those together rather quickly. And people want that, like you said, consistency.
Yep.
They want to kind of see something every Tuesday, be able to listen to it. And so that has really helped. And it's helped the download number as well. Just about to 7,000 downloads.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And so, so I think the more you give them, the more they want now. And then we added something called the sponsored podcast. And those come out on Fridays just when they're available.
Yep.
And it's just for a business or in a thing that maybe doesn't quite fit the revitalization, but they really want to be on the podcast.
Yep.
it's just another way to try to do that.
Yeah.
So,
And that's a great example of being creative. And that's one of the things I love about not just podcasting, but the ways that you can work it into social media. You can be creative in a million different ways. And instead of just doing it, that episode, you're doing the shout outs and then sponsored episodes and those types of things. That's great. And that's the fun part, is you get to be as creative as you want to be.
yeah. And hopefully it gives other people ideas.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, I think we probably better wrap this up.
Yeah. For my listeners, how can we find out more about you?
Oh, very good. So the Growing Small Town Nebraska podcast can be found anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcast. So probably wherever you're finding Brian's podcast. And the Good Life Small Business podcast, you're probably going to find mine as well.
We use the same platform, so likely that's the case.
Yep. So, Spotify, Pandora, Audible, iHeart.
Yep.
Wherever they're listening. And on our website. The website is growingsmalltowne.com.
Okay.
And if they have guest ideas or they think maybe they'd make a good episode, I'd love to hear from your listeners as well.
Okay.
They can email me, growingsmalltowne@gmail.com.
Nice.
Yeah. And how about you?
So you can do a search for Good Life Small Business Podcast. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I do a lot of stuff, but it's just under my personal profile. You can check me out there, Brian Blakely. And then we also have a YouTube page where I started out when I was doing the podcast. A lot of the episodes went under the Stonebridge Insurance YouTube page. About a couple years in, I decided to go ahead and just have a page dedicated to the podcast. So there's a YouTube page out there as well. All of our interviews are recorded, so you can watch the video as well. And then we break them up into segments, and we have shorts on YouTube, but then also like reels for Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. So I don't have a website. Good Life Small Biz, BIZ @gmail.com is the email address if anybody wants to reach out. Interested in an interview, anything like that. You can also reach out on social media too.
Great. Yeah, so I forgot to mention, yes, we're also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm trying to get better.
Yeah.
I don't post very often there. I do have my personal account, but I do also have the Growing Small Town Nebraska podcast one. I just haven't updated it in forever. It's a lot to manage.
Yes.
All of that. But yes. Yeah. So I do have a final question.
Okay.
If you're ready for it.
I'm ready.
So, where are you from again? Dunning.
I'm from Dunning, Nebraska.
Dunning, Nebraska.
Yeah.
So, Brian, what do you love about living in small town Nebraska?
There's a lot of things. The people, like you're just not going to find more genuine people, salt of the earth people. That's just how I was raised. I think I carry a lot of it now, just because it's just in my blood. Not that I'm a perfect person or anything like that, but it's just how I was brought up has a lot to do with, and the people that I was raised with and around. And the other fun thing is too, so we'll go back to Halsey, which is just 10 miles from Dunning. It's basically, so my elementary was made up of 4 small towns. My high school was made up of 4 small towns. And so those small towns around, they're all kind of one and the same. Halsey was one of those, and it's fun for me to go. So my girls will go tubing down the river in Halsey every summer, and it doesn't matter how old they get, they always look forward to that trip. They look forward to going and hanging out. I remember when my girls were really little, took the bikes to Dunning when my parents still lived there, and I said, well, we'll just take our bikes and we'll just go right around the street. And my youngest, she was probably 6 then. She's like, in the street?
Right.
I said, yeah, it's in the street. Trust me, it's fine. So, because there's no traffic. Yeah. So, I think it's just, I don't know. Those are 2 really, I could go on forever about that, but it's just kind of it's a simpler way of life. You realize that you don't necessarily need the hustle and bustle all the time. But it's fun for me to have my girls see kind of that perspective and that angle of things. And I think they really enjoy that time. I mean, they love living in Kearney and they love their friends, but they always look forward to going tubing down the river and things like that. And so it's fun for me to to kind of show them how I grew up too.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Brian, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
us getting together.
Yeah.
For my listeners, make sure you're checking out the Good Life Small Business Podcast. So when you get done with this one, just go ahead, hit follow, and start following Brian's podcast.
Absolutely. And same for my listeners too.
And I appreciate you being on here and having me on your podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.